playing Kurijenje and hide a seat at home. Yes. Since then, we've never recorded a negative GDP growth. We said, the NDC said, the MPP said Rawlings was bad at managing the economy. We're bad. But nobody recorded negative. These men, the men that they have, delivered negative 3.2% negative growth. Negative 3.2% growth.
And
so
this is a fact.
The economy contracted by 3.2%. So now look at it.
And this is a fact.
Oh, it's a fact. Look at it. Well, that one is not here because this is budget. But if you want, go and find Ghana Statistical Services, the reports are there.
Yeah.
You will find them there. Ghana's GDP growth rate in Q2 of this year. And let me one tell me that it was COVID-19. You said we had a mess, doomsday, and all that stuff. You also have one. You only hit negative 3.2%. And what is even interesting there is that this government has told us they've invested in one district, one factory. So every district must have a factory, Abi?
Yes.
Let me assume that it is true. The factories are there. Now, Sankofa.
But for the record, it is not true.
Well, but let's assume that you will see that the result will show it is not there. They say if your mother is dead and you pretend that you are sleeping, when is dinner time? Everybody is going home. That is when the truth will hit you.
Yeah.
One district, one factory, we've invested so much money in it. Now, assume that there were no factories in Ghana before you started your one district, one factory. So we were at zero production. Now, you have built all these factories. Do you know how much, within that 3.2 collapse that we had in the GDP, do you know how much manufacturing collapsed by? Factories are for manufacturing. They are not for playing hide and seek. It collapsed by 14.5%. How do you build more factories and yet manufacturing collapsed? So these are some of the...
So that means
but this is what tells you. People were told, we'll put this signboard in front of your factory and say one day second factory and give you some money. They take the money, but nothing's happening underneath. Some factories were existing, of course, they will be something. But the truth is, when you tell people the truth, you set the right expectations. So that is another typical example.
But when we're giving these monies to what other people have termed as their cronies in running businesses and calling them that is one district, one factory, they couldn't increase production?
Well, see, the question is...
Because now I struggle to see, I don't know what they are doing.
The question you have asked is answered by the performance. It's answered by performance. We don't care what you write on paper. It is feely.
What we see, what we feel.
What you see and feel. If you are telling me you are injecting this amount of money in there, nothing is coming out. It's like, you wake up every morning, you are going to work. You tell your wife, I'm going to work. Month end come. Your wife say, oh, Fasikabra. So that I will boss on coin for you. And you tell him, oh, I don't have money.
But you go to work every day.
Either you are not working or they have not paid you. Which is which and why?
Yes.
So the simple thing is, back to this point, his own media budget tells you that what he said, the 3.4, they are now begging for it. And you know what's interesting? Ghana, we have always celebrated ourselves as being, pioneers in the sub-region. Togo, Benin, I'll use Benin.
Our neighbors.
Small Benin, little Cotonou, Benin. You cross Togo to get to Benin. Benin is projected to hit 2.2%. These are IMF figures, not me. You can check it. Forecast for 2020. Benin will hit 2.2% growth. Ghana is sitting at a miserable 0.7%.
Why is this?
We are chopping last in the sub-region.
What? But why is this?
I'm happy you're asking these questions. Because when we finish, we'll package them so that Ghanaians will go and ask these questions.
Because when I see this, when I go to the Statistical Service website, when I go to the Bank of Ghana website, and I see this thing, and I see the people in charge, people who have attended university at Yale, people who have been raised abroad. You understand? Look at Nanado. He was a Lansing College in Sussex. Look at all. He's supposed to be economist himself. I didn't even know. I thought it was.
I did BSc economy in Legon.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I will not tell you what class I'm told he got, but he did well.
No, because when the EC brought for everybody's profession and what they did and the educational background, they put BSc economics. I was like, oh, wow.
So let's say he's an economist. Yeah. But you see, for me, it is not about the people. It's about the delivery. Yes, they are accomplished people. They've achieved a lot in their own lives. That stops at your place. Now show me. Ghanaians entrusted them with the country to deliver what they promised. What we are seeing is everything is working reverse. You buy a new car, you put first gear and the car is going back. Fifth gear will jump you behind. But these are fine gentlemen. And the truth is, We are asking what has gone wrong. You can talk all you want, but like Baumia said, the fundamentals were exposed.
But
so on GDP growth,
yes, yes. So finish on that, and I'll ask what the NDC can do.
Good. Coming to the what can the NDC do it? We have done it before. See, on the CD, I proved that we are better. On inflation, I proved that we had the longest uninterrupted single-digit inflation. Ghana, this country called Ghana, experienced in 2011 under the NDC, under the able leadership of His Excellencies, the late John Evans Atamils and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. When John Dramani Mahama was the chairman of the economic management team, we hit 14.2% growth. We topped the world. We've never hit that level before. So that is where we sit.
Remember those days they compare us to Brazil when they were moving that fast as well.
We did that. So that tells you, see, if a man has given you a chedia before, it means he can do it. When he says it, will you not trust him?
You have to trust.
We have given to Ghana that before. So when we say we'll come back, we are going to well, look, we said it's going to be sustainable, not yo-yo. This year 8.8, the next year negative. You need a stable economy growing to create jobs, and that's what we are saying. We don't want to create Azana jobs, Sakawa jobs, where you put the person go here today out. No, we don't.
Only for the books.
Good.
And the cameras.
The way you grow jobs, look, if the economy is booming, people's income goes up, they will consume. Which means now I used to buy only one ball of kenke and manage. Now I can buy two. Kenke seller will get more money.
Of course.
Kenke seller will double money. Everybody double. That means kenke seller's capacity double. Kenke seller will probably say, I was always buying Toyota. Now I'm buying Benz. Assuming we produce Benz in Ghana. But you see how it all comes together.
I'm quite interested in the debt issue, and we want to come on the debt. I'm quite interested with just realizing that we also have our time running down, so we have to just be hitting on that. All right, just in case you didn't start with us or you just joining us, this is Omega Live TV. My name is Sankofa Danso. I'm your host today, and we are discussing Ghana intelligently and, of course, dispassionately. The People's Manifesto is what the NDC have launched, and it has taken over all other race in the manifesto. Now it has been the working tool that we are all looking at, and you realize after the former president, His Excellency John Mahama, had said that he was going to have a new discussion with the Okada people, you would see people running to the Okada and talking to them. I mean, people from the other side, the NPP, talking to them and seeing how best they can get their concern as to how they move on. But as you know, if you can do it for me and you didn't do it and your opponent says it and you run to do it, what does it tell me? We are wiser than how some of the politicians have been using us. My guest again, just in case if you join us now, my guest again is Conrad Dumbah, and he is the MK branch chairman of the NDC UK IRELAND. He's an accountant and he's a banker as well. Conrad, where do we stand on our debt? And please, let viewers know that we have all borrowed before as political parties. We have all borrowed before as political parties. And so it baffled me a lot when Nanado, I remember at the Peace FM studio, had given an indication that it's a lazy man's idea to borrow and that they are not going to borrow and that we sit on the money but we are hungry. So then we have to stand off the money and use the money that we sit on it. And Baumia has also said that we're not going anywhere to borrow. The money is in the system. And in fact, he had even added, for the people to believe even more, he had added on authority. And the authority he added on it is, I have been there before. I know the money is there and we are going to do it. So when we borrowed and borrowed and borrowed to the point that when COVID-19 even struck, we still have to go and borrow and come and tell the people that this is how much we have used in feeding people, and for the whole country go like, oh. It was a bit shocking. Where do we stand on this?
I think the question you should actually be asking is, where do we lie? Because we are not standing. On this question of debt, we are not even standing. We are not even squatting, not moving. We are lying flat, posted like the Agama Lizard. Why? Again, like you said, there were stock of Yetisikaso, coming here. My uncle, Dr. Baumia, said, I work at Bank of Ghana. I know there's money there. We don't need to borrow. What are we seeing today? Now, let's start with where do we stand? As of June this year, our total national debt stood at 258 billion. Just call it 260 billion. This is as of June.
This is a fact.
This is fact.
200 and...
Go to the 2020 mid-year review budget. If anybody wants, page 25, the second but last paragraph is all there.
Page 25 of the media review budget.
Budget, yes.
Now, who did the media review budget? The government.
The government, Nana's government.
Nana's government.
So I'm talking from them because me, I can't produce numbers.
Yes.
I don't lay eggs. I'm not a hen.
Of course.
They lay the data and then we'll talk about it. So we are
which page?
Page 25.
Page 25.
It will tell you. Now, as of June, our debt was rounded up to 260 billion. That's 258, or even make it 250. Right? That's where we are sitting. January 2017.
Ghana cedis, is it?
Ghana cedis. Now, this is the interesting thing. I'm going to go all the way back to when Ghana became Ghana, not Gold Coast.
That's
1957, since the days of Osajifo. Through Osajifo, then you had the coup. Then Buzia came. Then you had coup, Champon, Afrefa, and coup with Palace coups. Rollins came in, Liman came in, Rollins came back again. Second half gave to the gentle giant Kufuor. Kufuor gave to Atamils. Atamils passed on the baton to JM. JM ran to the finish line. And guess what our total debt was by then? 59 years since independence.
When JM was leaving?
Yes. And that's the cumulative total of debt, including all the governments I've just mentioned, from Nkrumah to Kufuor, up to Nkrumah, Buzia, Kufuor, all the way down to JM. Our debt was 120 billion.
120 billion?
120 billion cedis. 60 years you took to hit 120 billion. Then somebody comes in 3.5 years, because June was 3.5 years, increased it from 120 billion to 258 billion.
Whoa.
An increase of 138 billion in 3.5 years. What all other governments across Ombo Dam, Tama Township, Tama Motorway, Tama Harbour, all the things you see in Ghana, every single thing done, the debt we incurred in addition to our resources to do all of that was only 120 billion.
These were all in the 120 billion?
Everything was in there. Including, let's be clear, you see the circle interchange, that debt is there. Pokwasi interchange, the contract for it was signed on 26 September 2016. And you know, under accrual accounting, in public financial management, we don't do cash again, we do accrual. When you borrow, we put your name down as you owe it.
Hold on for me. Which means, as we speak, the Pokwasi interchange is in the 120.
Bam.
Pokwasi because I want us to run it, gradually and see what we can discount.
Yes.
Because listen, we have to hold brief for the government.
Yes.
So government means
business. This is where we'll be honest.
Using money.
Obechebilamte phase 1 is in there because Mahama incurred that debt.
Okay, so
if you incur debt, we put the debt to you.
It's in the 120 or it's in the 128?
It's in the 120.
Okay.
Everything that started before Mahama left or was contracted, if you signed your loan and you owe the debt, we recognize it. You don't sign and say we don't owe it.
Oh. And that's the accrual account you're talking about.
Good. Let's cut the others out one by one. Some of the flagship projects, Circle, no one are
but let's because this is quite interesting. People don't. You see, I know that people are following, and with a very good heart and a very genuine mind, they want to see what the facts really are.
Yeah.
We are gentlemen. You're an accountant. You understand? We are gentlemen. We can put politics aside and put the figures and facts on.
Yeah.
Now, for the 60 years from the 1957 that we had independence through the military regimes and all down to the Fourth Republic, the debt is sitting on the left side, which is 120 billion.
Bam.
From 2017 till the day that we are talking, now the debt is sitting 138 billion.
Not today to June, because since June it's gone up again. So let's just even leave for June. Okay, let's assume that it's to date. 138 has been added. And you see, one of the things is the MPP will say, oh, but we are building this. And that's why I deliberately brought this into this
discount all that. I'll see and see what we can discount.
You see, they say they do the Tema interchange. Tema interchange was a grant from Japan International Cooperation Agency, Japan, JICA. Government of Ghana didn't pay for it. No grant. Actually, you don't put it in your debt. So that one is cancelled. I've just said.
Oh, so that one is not in 120, it's not in the 138.
No, it's a grant. You don't put grant in your debt. Okay. If I give you a cherry, you're not supposed to.
No, you're not supposed to.
Write it
No.
If I give you Buzia, you know you owe me.
Of course, yeah.
You see? So that one, they can't argue about that. Pokwasi, I said, cannot be there. Okay.
But Pokwasi wasn't grant.
No, Pokwasi was a loan from African Development Bank.
Yes.
JM signed that loan.
So it's in JM's loan.
If JM incur debt and MPP come, they will not expose his nyas to say it would have been calculated and added there. The first phase of Obechebi, JM did it, so we can add that one. The second phase, which is about extra.
You can add that one to the MPP's one.
No, to the NDC's one.
NDC's one, okay.
The second phase, which is about $100 million, the MPP did it, so you can add it to their 138.
Okay, I understand.
Let's go to PTC interchange in Takoradi and Tamale interchange. Those ones don't even show in our national debt. You know why?
Why?
You know, we decided to go and mortgage our bauxite to the Chinese, 2 billion, and in return they'll be building for us. You remember the NDC wrote to the IMF? The NDC wrote to the IMF saying that is technically a loan, so add it to the debt because the government refused to add it. So as we speak, that 138 doesn't include that 2 billion with the Chinese. 2 billion times today's 5.8, where do you land? That's over 11 billion that would have added. But let's put that aside. But there's a reason why I'm discounting this.
Why? I just want to know, why didn't they add that? Because it's more like a batter, and of course it comes back to.
That is why.
Otherwise, you're going to get some money in the bauxite, isn't it?
That is why the
NDC
NDC
wrote the
wrote.
bauxite off.
Good. That's why the NDC wrote to IMF. IMF sided with them. So let's put that one aside. So they cannot claim any of these big ticket items. It's in their 138.
They have free SHS.
Oh, you can go to Oforeyata himself says it. Go to each of the budgets. He will tell you how much he spent. In 2017, if you look at 2018 budget where he tells you how much was spent for the 2016, it was about 1.6 billion cedis.
Oh, so that was just a small fraction of the 138.
Yes. So even if we rounded up to 2 billion per year on free SHS, and we have been we've got 4 years. 4 times 8 billion.
8 billion.
Let's even give it to them free and say it's 10 billion.
So where is the 130 billion?
Good. And this is the two key things we need to take from this conversation. Number one, their total debt incurred in 3.5 years is more than the total debt incurred by Ghana as a country for 60 years, 59 years, around it to 60 years. That's number one. Number two, there's one interesting thing. If you're a businessman, I assume Ghana is a business. When you borrow, you expand your business. Ally?
Of course.
So if your debt is there has to be something to show for it. JM can beat his chest and say, look, I borrowed about 54 billion, 55 billion in my 4 years. I have got circle interchange to show for it. I have got these other ones. I talked about Pukwasi included, BHB included.
Yes, the
I've got
face of it.
bank, put bank hospital because we're aside, Ridge Hospital. I've got University of Ghana Medical Center.
Where
thousands
of
of
COVID
good where they were resting because they said they don't have COVID, so they're just going to rest there. The massive infrastructure development, interchanges, Terminal 3.
It's beautiful, man.
JM can beat his chest and say, I delivered this infrastructure with my 54. Now, back to my good friends, the Elephant Fraternity. That 138 billion.
I've started for them and you shut it down.
Good.
I started on free SHS, now you shut it down. Now we have even given to them for 10 billion. Now we have 130.
So what else can they show? You can only say it was we're borrowing for kinky parties. Because anytime we borrow, Oforeyata will go and he release bond, then he'll go and do kinky party at finance ministry. So the people who said we will not borrow, we're now celebrating borrowing with kinky parties. I don't know whether they were eating it with Chinam or Titus sardine.
Correct. Do you genuinely feel that someone is stealing the money?
Well, I get angry.
Because listen, or does it go on salaries?
One of the
can it be in salaries?
You see, in the NDC manifesto, we've said when we come, we'll do a full debt
because
audit.
It can win.
We'll do a full debt audit and we will find out what the debt is. There are some elements of the debt. I'll give you some examples that are really, really sad. But if you look at almost annually, we borrow about 3 billion euro bonds. You go and $3 billion, and majority of it goes into consumption. You were supposed to grow the economy. When you grow your economy, just like when you grow your business, you get profit. And you use it to pay your cost. If you grow the economy, you should get more revenue, collect more revenue, and be able to settle and have less debt. We have been borrowing to consume. There are a few funny things. Part of our debt, about 22 billion, was spent on bailing banks. See the interesting thing. When those banks...
How much was spent to do that?
The government says about 22 billion cedis was spent bailing the banks. Do you know how much those banks needed to survive?
No.
9 billion. The banks needed 9 billion to survive. It not me talk. Yes.
The banks needed 9 billion to survive.
Yes.
But
we refused to give it to them.
And we spend, well, when we say...
And we collapse them.
And we say we spend
22 billion. You see, it is just it is no different from spending 52 million cedis on rice and stew for COVID-19. When Honorable Adongo queried, they reduced it to 12 or however million.
That was ridiculous. But that was an insult to Ghanaians. It was an insult.
When you follow some of those small things, then you can come to your own conclusion. But back to that amount. You know, in this country, when 2008 financial crisis across the globe, Americans bailed out banks. This country, Royal Bank of Scotland was bailed out. One of the few banks that wasn't bailed out, Halifax Bank of Scotland, was bailed out. What did the government do? Lloyds, a giant. The government injected the capital that they needed in there for the banks to stabilize. As soon as the banks stabilized, the government took shares back in return for the capital it put in there. When they were recovered, they sold and took their money. In fact, the government made profit on it. We could have done that. In fact, interestingly, the NDC had a plan for fixing it. You know, in the history of Ghana, one of the reasons these banks were collapsed was we said their capital ratio was very low. We increased it. And this is where I'm coming to. When Kufuor took over, he increased, I think it was about 2008 thereabouts, he increased the bank's capital, minimum capital requirements. Basically, all it is saying is, you want to run a bank, how much of your own money are you putting into it? So how much money do you start with? Because with bank, you're not taking other people's deposits.
Of course.
So you must have some money.
Yes.
I cannot be giving you money to be trading when you don't have your own money. So at the time, back before 2008, it was just 7 million cedis needed. Kufuor increased it to 60 million. But see, 660. But see, he did it very wisely. The gentle giant was smart. There are very good people in the MPP. I must say that. I have family and friends there. It's about how you do it. It's not about where you belong. He gave foreign banks 2 years to find capital, to increase their capital base from the 7 million to 60. He gave local banks 5 years. Why? Because he was protecting local businesses. Because Standard Chartered will simply come and do they can do that here and they get it. But a local bank would struggle.
But Papa would struggle
sustainably. The NDC then increased it from 60 to 120 in 2012. Because anytime you see the banks are struggling, the question is, if you have your own money there and you get into struggle, you are not posing more of a risk to the other people's money. But if your money is not there and you are just, I mean, there's many ways of looking at it from a banking perspective. If you are trading with just my money, you take reckless risk.
Of course.
Because the rewards are yours, the risks are mine.
Yes.
So part of your capital is there. Plus, it's also stable that your money is there.
Yes.
Well, this increased it to 120. Now, when in 2015-16 we found that we were having challenges in the banking sector, the NDC, I mean, under international finance, I mean, Basel II, has something they call ICAP.
What's that?
So it's basically a protocol where each bank will be required to assess how much capital they need. You know, the capital we're talking about, the minimum amount you need. And they will assess it based on the risks they are taking.
Okay.
So if you are, let's say, make it very simple. I'm a bank and I'm giving loans. Remember, I take your money and I give loans. When I take your money, I have to secure it. When I'm giving loans, I charge them a certain interest. And it's not everybody I give loans to. That's why in this country, some people will get it 10%, some will get it 1%, some will get 50%. If I want to get more loans and make more money, I won't just even care about the caliber of people. Like what happened with subprime mortgages, where people were living in, if you like, trailer houses in the Western world, and they gave them mortgages where they couldn't afford. And so, if you are a bank and you are taking some risks, because of the risk you take, you have to then calibrate how much capital you need to keep to cover those risks. So the NDC said that is a good move. So number one, we were increasing the minimum capital required from 120, right, to I think it was about 230 thereabouts, or something just about that. But basically, we're increasing about 92%. And we went through a lot of conversations with these banks. We know what your problem is. Yes, you've got it wrong. We are working together because people are employed in those banks. You don't just shut it down.
No.
So we were going through that. In fact, you know, we did help, what's his name, Dr. ICGC, what was the bank?
Yeah.
That's another story. But the NDC was taking steps gently. If the patient is sick, treat them gently till we get out of the woods. MPP came in, threw it all apart, and decided that we are going to increase the minimum capital. The NDC wanted to do it from 120 to 210, I think, million. They decided to take it to 400 million. So you owe me money, yeah? And then I then come and tell you, oh, you cannot pay 120, so pay 400. Doesn't make sense.
No. No, it doesn't make sense.
On top of that, if they had followed what Kufuor did, the reason I said Kufuor did it, the NDC did it, is because it has been done before, and not shut banks down. You give them enough time till they themselves say, I surrender, I can't find anything after all of that. 2017 we announced, and we gave them by December 2018, you have to do it. A very short period, less than 2 years. That, to add more insult to injury, some banks, an example is, what's the name? Let's use Heritage Banks, because we have time interest. Heritage Bank, owned by Sedu Agongo.
Agongo, yeah.
He went and got shareholders and other investors to add money to get to where he wanted. He wrote to the Bank of Ghana. So I've got these people, they want to give money. Give us the blessing so that they give the money. Rumor has it that the Bank of Ghana wrote to those people and said, don't invest in that bank.
It's for Sedu Agongo. It's for
Sedu Agongo. What they say is an NDC man. To make matters worse, they wanted to collapse the man. So what did they do? They put this prosecution of this nitrogen fertilizer. They accused him, took him to court. And you know the principle, you are a lawyer. You are innocent until proven guilty.
Yes, of course.
They decided to execute the man at firing squad before they now went to court to hear his case. Why? Once they took him to court, they then turned around and hung on the fact that, oh, because you are in court, you are not a good character to run a bank.
Of course, and
you haven't been found guilty.
Yes, and investors will
and they collapse the bank.
Yeah, you also see from that.
Take Unibank, take GM Bank, Williams Bank, the bank that had some of the largest branches in Ghana, even rivaling GCB. These banks were the banks that were pre-financing our contractors for a lot of the major projects that GM ran. A lot of the roads and all that stuff. Government refused to pay those contractors, which means they cannot pay Ndum and Dr. Kwabena Dufuor's Unibank. And government then turned around and decided, oh, those debts are bad debts. Government is supposed to pay these guys so that they will pay you. Government refused to pay them. And they say, oh, because they are not paying you, it's bad debt. We are collapsing you. You see, the case is in court.
And the court is getting frustrated.
And all these people
are getting frustrated because the government is coming with a sick case all the time. That is wasting the court's time.
My prediction, this case will die like Chikata case. You watch. But see, back to the point we were making. These banks, even though some of them, they were legitimately, yes. They were closed up lightly, yes. All in all, they needed 9 billion to save jobs. It's estimated up to 48,000 jobs were lost. And you know in Ghana, one man's job takes care of the whole family. His wife's children, his wife's family, his own family, and all that stuff.
But let me ask you, Conrad, if they had saved these banks, and the directors keep on trading wrongly and behaving the way they were behaving, we come back to the same thing.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. And this is why I deliberately use the example in the Western world. Most of us, or most of our politicians, the big men in Ghana, they've all studied here. They know. They're top-notch economists. They know. Right? We could have plowed that 9 billion in. Let's look at it this way. If you had plowed that 9 billion in, let's say you own the bank and you were sick and you needed 1 billion. And let's say currently you have, say, 1 billion as your, let's say capital was your problem. So you have capital. Of course, there's governance problems. And you need 1 billion to survive. Government asks you 1 billion. And in return, government then says, I will take 50% of the business because you have 1 billion, I have other 1 billion. So the two of us are right. So government now has the right. Good. So you can appoint directors to the board of that bank to change the way it is managed and to manage it in the interest. And in fact, government, the regulator.
Because these banks are going concerns, aren't they?
Yes, the regulator can decide to intervene. Once you steer the bank to shore, you can take your money. And if you want, either you sell the money, list on the stock exchange, take your money, or just say you are not healthy, pay me my money and carry on. We would have got something back from the 9 billion, right? Now here we have spent more than double the 9 billion.
Which is 22 now.
billion. And this is the catch.
People have lost their jobs.
This is the catch. Not only have people lost their jobs, we spent 22 billion, and that's what they said in the budget. The people still kept complaining they hadn't received their money.
Nobody have received this.
In fact,
I know a lot number.
Do you know JM paid those people? I explain why. They were singing around that they had paid the people until JM put it in our manifesto that when we come, we'll pay all of them.
Yeah,
the very next day, they went and found some 6 billion or how much it is to start paying them.
Even that they did cherry picking.
Good.
Even that they did cherry picking.
So if you look at it, that means that take 22 and take the 9 out. 14 billion that we have wasted, and it's sitting in there. And the jobs, see those 48,000 plus jobs that were lost through that, they would have been paying taxes.
Yes, of course.
And that would have added to our revenue. So if you look at this, and this is just a typical example, there are others that have added to the reckless way we have borrowed. And this is the sad thing. We are now in a position where you can technically and comfortably say, if we are going to look at just the money we generate in the country and the money we spend in the country, we have to put our hands up and say, we surrender. I'll tell you why.
Tell me why. Because
if you start, I start in 2020, and I'm going to use Oforiate's own budgets. I want to ask us to look at how much are we paying, the most 3 key items that we have to pay. You have to pay salaries for government workers. You owe loans, you have to pay interest on them. And as part of the loan, there's a portion of the loan you pay back called the amortization. So basically, if you go and take a loan and they say you pay it over 5 years, they'll take the loan, divide it by the 5 years, calculate the interest of the loan, add on top, and divide it by that 5 years. So that each time you pay, maybe if you pay 100 cedis today, 30 cedis interest, 70 cedis is part of the original loan you are paying back. Let's go back to the point when you argue today, they will say, oh, COVID-19. Let's start before COVID-19, 2019. In 2019, our total revenue on grants that we got in the country, not the borrowing. So I've just put the good grants and revenue, tax revenue, other sources of revenue we generated.
Now, what about to ask you, how much do we collect?
Good. In 2019, no, let me do 2020 first, and we will go back.
Okay.
In 2020, as we speak now, if you go to the government's own projections in there, we are heading for a total of about 53.7 billion that will raise.
That's let's call it collections.
Good. Yeah. That is the total amount we are looking at to raise. Now, of that amount, what are we going to pay? Compensation, that's salaries for all our public sector workers, going to be about 27 billion. Yeah. Interest on our loans, 26 billion. Do you know how much interest, and just a little aside here, do you know how much the interest was on our loans when JM was in power last year, 2016? 10 billion.
That's the interest on our loans?
Yeah.
And now how much is it?
26 billion.
Whoa.
But is it a surprise if you more than double? If you work the percentage, they'll probably follow each other. Because if 120 billion becomes 260,
yes.
then 10 billion can easily become 26. Can you see how the two follow?
Yes.
120, 260, 10, 26.
Yeah, they follow.
So that tells you another thing, excessive borrowing. So back to the conversation, 2020, 26 billion to pay the interest alone. The portion of the loans to pay back is 12 billion. And this again is page 112 of the mid-year review budget. That's where I'm getting my numbers from. I've circled them and they're all there.
The government's own budget.
The government's own budget. So I don't know what is in there, but they have said it. So let's believe it. If little fish come out of water and say crocodile is dead, who am I to argue?
No.
They said it.
So even if based on what they said, it's not even encouraging.
Well, add the amortization of 12 billion, you get a total of 65 billion that we need to spend. Pay 27 to workers, pay our interest on our debt 26, pay portion of our debt 12. That's total of 65 billion. Meanwhile, our revenue is 53.7 billion.
So we run in deficit.
We are short of 11.3 billion. They will tell you, oh, it's because it is COVID-19. Let me accept that for 1 second. So let's assume that 2019 would have been better, right? Because COVID-19 was in 2019. So let's go to 2019. In 2019, again, our total revenue and grants was 53.3. So you see that this year was 53.7, last year was 53.3, only 0.4, about 400 million increase.
We're not collecting much.
Good. Our total compensation bill, again, this is page 105 of his own budget, right?
Can you forget this budget?
Yes, yes. This is page, well, this is the one I'm looking at, yeah. His own mid-year review, page 112. This one is there, page 112. And he tells you, and this is his revised portion, so I'm going through the data from his revised budget, right? No, this is the 2021, sorry. So let me come back to 2019. So this was what he reported for 2019 as his outturn for 2019, what has happened in 2019. You know the way the budget works. If I'm doing a budget this year, I'll tell you what happened for last year.
Of course, yeah.
And so these are more actual than the 2020 we've just talked about. But even then, total revenue was 53.3 billion. The component that went to compensation, the amount we got as the apport, 22 billion went to salaries. 19.7 billion went to paying interest, almost 20 billion, but let's keep it at 20.7. Amortization, I explained that earlier on, was 11.2. Add all of them together, you get 52.9 billion. How much did we raise? We raised 53.3 billion. So if you take the difference, it means in 2019, we were left with only 400 million left to do everything else. I've just taken only 3 items. I haven't talked about other things that the budget will cover, other expenditure. I've just gone in there. I've not talked about use of goods and services. No. I've only just focused on the compensation line, the interest payment line, both domestic and external. I haven't talked about any subsidies, any other spending that we spend in Ghana, like LEAP, we give money. I haven't gone there. I've only talked about how much you pay salaries, the interest you pay, and the portion of your loans you pay. You add that together, and we're left with 400 million.
Only?
Yeah. So you see, last year that was supposed to be a good year. Of 53 billion you raised in revenue, only 400 million was left by the time you pay your interest. Now, remember, looking at the debt, you see that the difference in revenue last year and this year is almost the same. This year only increased by 400 million.
Yes.
The problem you have is that the interest, the debt interest increased from 19.7%
the salaries even
to 26%. Salary also increased. There are stories about that, where it is alleged that Uforiata literally lifted data bank staff, brought them to Ministry of Finance. So if you were Minister of Finance doing job A,
it's not allegation. They are all there. We all know them.
And it's happening rampantly across all the ministries. We are doubling up on people doing the same thing. So I'm now sat in my corner there and somebody doing the work. 2 people for the price of 1. So why won't you have a...
Because you can't sack them.
No, yeah.
You can't sack them.
They sack some people.
Okay.
So if you are not lucky and they do toss coin and you don't get lucky, they fire you. But just ignore the compensation bill. Let's assume that government was, let's say, increasing people's salary to make them feel better and work better. Look at the amount. 19.7 in interest last year, 26. So we have spent an extra 6.3 billion in paying interest on loans. Interest alone? Yes, on loans. Because you've increased your borrowing. Of course. This 6 billion, do you know what it would have done? A lot. How many schools, how many hospitals would it have built? Now, if you look at it this way, add that 6 billion, well, the amortization remained largely the same, 11.2 versus 12, because the portion of your debt you are paying largely the same. But look at the interest payment alone going up by over 6 billion. In 1 year alone, it's gone up by over 6 billion because you are borrowing more. And the question is, where is that money? What did you do with it? We've established what they didn't do. Then you go into the question of what they did. They gave us the tracker to follow. The last time I checked that tracker, the last time I checked that tracker, I checked this. There was supposed to be an AstroTurf in Adenta. Nothing there. That night, they quickly paid people to go and pour chippings there. There is supposed to be 120 unit housing unit, 120 bed housing unit, 120 housing unit somewhere in a little suburb of Bolga called Posonamo. Hello, Posonamo. The only thing that is there is a signboard. Nothing on it. Like Keta. Good. Keta Port is supposed to be there. You go to Keta Port, it has a CEO sitting in Tama, drawing salaries for 4 years. See, this is where part of the debt is. You appoint people, even look at ministers. How many ministers have we got? 125. How many presidential staffers have we got? JM had 600 plus. They said he was bloated. They have over 1,002. Yes. Now you see where we are borrowing to pay these because all these people draw salaries. And they are not adding any value. No. So now let's do the link. The debt is going up. You should usually use your debt to increase your production capacity, to make more money, to be able to pay for yourself. But because that debt is all going to KK parties and useless appointments that has not added to the economy is not moving. In fact, it has gone this way. So the economy is going down and debt is going up. So when you now come to debt to GDP ratio, why would you get 76.7% by this year end? As we speak now, we're about 67% thereabout. And this brings us to that interesting thing. They talked about, back in 2016, Baumia said we were epic because we had hit 67%. At the time, he actually used a non-rebased GDP. Again, with GDP, you know, we talked about you have to draw a line as you increase. So let's say this year's GDP is 100. You say this year is your base. If next year is 120, the difference is 20. So you take that difference of 20 divided by the 100, that is the base. And every other year after that, you carry on. Now, when it gets to a point where you realize that that 100 is no longer reflective, because that 100 was measuring only 3 items. Yam phones, let's say back in the day, Nokia 33 type phone. All you could do was buy credit. Couldn't do anything else with it. Yeah. But now, the economy has changed. The way we consume is different. We have smartphones. We bank on it. We buy data. You couldn't, why are you going to buy data on 3310? Yeah. So now you need to move the economy to reflect that 3310 and the increased production capacity. Okay. And that's where you find that suddenly the economy tends to balloon. It grows when you rebase it. So if you use, when you use a grown, you know, in fractions, if your denominator, if there's a relationship between your numerator and denominator, if the top line is the numerator at the bottom denominator, just for avoidance of any doubt. If your numerator today is 1, yeah, okay, let's say it is 2, and your denominator is also 2, your answer is 1. If you suddenly change your denominator to 4, and the numerator stays at 2, your answer is no more 1.
No, it's 2 over 4.
Yeah, 2 over 4. That's now what? Half 50%. Yeah. 0.5. Yeah. And so it was important. But back to the point. He used old data instead of new data and arrived at 67% GDP, debt to GDP ratio, when the actual figure was about 56, 53. And suddenly declared that we were epic. So in Baumia's words, 67% debt to GDP ratio is epic. Now come 2020, what happens? Our debt to GDP ratio is now projected to be 76.7. In fact, now it's breached the 70% mark. And suddenly say, oh no, it's not epic.
So even assuming that 67 you're talking about is
was
true,
correct. If 67 is, how can 76.7 not be? Unless in the logic of these big men, the numbers have changed. Maybe now we start from 100 down to 0, where 100 is smaller than 0. And therefore, 76.7 is smaller than 67%.
The last time we checked, it wasn't like that.
Well, me, I still go with the maths they taught me, so I still go up, not down.
Of course.
See, it doesn't make sense.
No.
And then they were so we will go and get somebody who can tell us we're not HIPIC. HIPIC eligibility criteria. I mean, HIPIC, we all know HIPIC. We were talking about HIPIC when we were youngsters. The highly indebted poor countries initiative. There are criteria for you being eligible to go and claim. One of the criteria, the numerate criteria, was basically, okay, if your revenue to your debt ratio is in excess of 280%, then you are technically HIPIC, so you can come and claim. So basically, if I take my total debt and divide it by my revenue that I get, so it's basically looking at how much of it can you pay. Your debt is this much. Your amount you generate, the money you generate is this much. And if it is more than, if the ratio is more than 280%, you are HIPIC. Do you know where we sit now? Again here, let me not be the one to say it. If you take, in the course of our conversations, we've established, this year, Oforiatta has projected that we will hit 67 billion. I know he has revised it, but let's keep that 67 billion as the internal revenue. You know the numbers we just talked about here.
The 53 billion, yeah.
Yes.
And, yeah.
So he has projected that we were supposed to hit that. So let me ignore the 53 and say that his budget figure of 67 is what we will use. Now let us be generous to him and go back to June and use the June debt ratio and compare that debt to that year end, because you know I should compare him point in time, because by allowing him up to December, I'm actually helping him, Abi. If you take that 258, call it 260 or 258, and you divide it by 67, what percentage you get? You get over 390%. Now, if the criteria, and this is the criteria that Kufuor followed when we said, our debt is more than, so let's go HIPIC. It's more than 280%. Yeah, the debt to revenue generated is more than that. And it's even supposed to be net figures, but I'm using gross just to make things simple. Now we are sitting at 390. And the people who said the NDC gave us HIPIC in early 2000s because we exceeded 280%, I suddenly say, oh, we are 390%, but it is not HIPIC.
What is the logic behind this?
Yeah. So, you see, based on what we have said, Ghana is technically broke. Even if you look at the emergency appropriation bill, you know, the finance minister has submitted one. Because of the election, you have to project, okay, give me some money to spend for the first 3 months, so that at least whoever is coming in has something to carry on, because we know we are taking over. Even if you go there and do the same numbers that we talked about in terms of, remember the earlier analysis where we talked about total revenue biases, the key things you need to, you will find this. Your total debt, your revenue expected for next year is about 66.5. Again, this is budgetary, right? It's not happening because next year hasn't come yet. But he himself has projected next year, my total revenue and grants is 66.5. But when I add my compensation bill, salaries, I add my interest that I'm paying, I add my amortization, I hit 69.1. Now, if you compare 69.1, 66.5, 2.6 billion short.
Yes, still I'm short. 2.6
billion short. So since 2019, because we have had so much high debt, our debt is now so huge that its interest and the amortization on it is hanging on our necks, and our revenue. So technically now, all the work Ghanaians do, we are working to pay debt. We work to pay salaries and debt. There's nothing left to build the roof.
I'm thinking, because looking at all the years you've given us and the figures you've given us from the government's own side, and
that one is this one here. This is the expenditure, 2021 expenditure in advance appropriation, which he presented to Parliament recently, right?
Conrad,
page 10 on that. Those are the numbers there.
So, Conrad, technically we are broke.
You have said it. When they asked Jesus, are you the Son of God? He said, you have said it. But my brother, you have said it. If you are in a situation where all of Ghana, the work we are doing, the money we earn at the end of the year, it can only pay our salaries. After that, it will pay our interest on the debt we have together with the amortization. What about the other things?
Can we not cut down some of the expenditures so that we can stay within?
This is where the NDC's point comes in, and it takes us right back to what we said we would do. And this is now time for me to start talking about what we said we would do. We said we will have what? One of the things we talked about is we have sustainable debt levels.
Are you able to hold on for me? I take a quick break.
Yes.
And we get down on some water and we come back to it. So I say this to alert the technical team to get us on a quick break. Now, you are so okay. We go.
And the promises and yati yati, hey, Mahama bro, jam bro, wana bongo. Mahama bro, jam bro, una. Mahama bro, jam bro, wana bongo. Mahama bro, jam bro, wana. Hecho, wana, odo, wana. Yebreo, na yebreo, na yebreo, na yebreo, Rabeji yenu, rabeso yemu, rabeji yenu, rabeso yemu.
Welcome back. You're also watching Omega Live TV, and tonight we are discussing Ghana and the People's Manifesto of the NDC, which has been the working mark now that we are looking at as a people. It tells you people matter, and it tells you that everyone understands that we have to get on with what the people want. With me tonight is Mr. Conrad Dumbah, who is the MK, Milton Keynes branch chair of the NDC. He's an accountant and he's a banker. I have him here tonight. We've been discussing very much, and tonight has been the facts and figures from the government website and what the government says about itself. I can understand why the vice president is not talking about economy anymore. I can understand. It's quite uncomfortable because, listen, if the Minister of Finance comes to publish this, you're part of the economic team, you plan and come and publish this one, and knowing very well that we put the figures down, realize that the country is technically broke, we spending more than we able to raise, it's a problem. Even in our domestic homes, if we spending more than we can raise, it's a problem. If the home needs about 1,500 to survive because the mortgage is about 900, we have interest of here, we have insurance of there, we have the council tax of this much to pay, we have electricity this much to pay, and the food this much to pay gets about 1,500, but the income that comes in is 1,200, 1,300, this is a problem. Then you realize that the home is short 200. Day-to-day life, we see it all the time, and that is what the government is doing. Yet, it is touting itself that it has the men. It is touting itself that it knows how to run the economy more than the NDC. But the figures are here to show and let people who really understand and love Ghana come out really in good faith to say that, listen, it's high time we realized that it's not from where you are depending on what you want to vote for. It doesn't really matter that you are in Asante region or you are in the Eastern region, you are the nooks of the stronghold of the MPP, so therefore I'm going to go that direction. Be touched. That is the reason why you are educated. That is the reason why you understand these things. That's the reason why you are a human being. You know, you do it for the country, and of course you do it for God. It's very important. Please, let's interrogate firmly for everything that the NDC says and anything that MPP said. Let's interrogate it very firmly and see where it has to belong. My name, Sankofa Tete Danso, and I'm with Conrad Dumbah. As I said, Conrad, welcome back again.
Thank you. Just a quick one to follow up on the point you made about the fact that the MPP is now feeling shy to even talk about economy. I mean, to talk about the current state of affairs. One very key piece of evidence to support what you said is their own manifesto. You go to the section of their manifesto, 1.1, page 6.
The one they are working with.
Their own manifesto.
Okay, the one they are working with. Now, this is what they're working with.
No. They do
projection for the
one they released in August or September recently.
Okay.
When you go in there, you'll find something interesting. They don't talk about 2020. They pretend 2020 doesn't exist.
Really?
You go in there, bullet point 1, 2, 3, page 6 of the MPP manifesto. The section 1.1, the economy. Number 1, they claim restore overall macroeconomic stability. Good. When it comes to inflation, they tell you the inflation figures, and then guess where they end? December 2019. Where inflation was down to 7.9. I agree that it was rebased. they don't talk about April onwards when it has jumped into double digit. April started happening and it has been double digit all the way to August to September when they published their document. Why did they not say that? Come to GDP growth. Again, do you know where they end? They end in 2019. They don't say anything about the projection in 2020, which was to be 0.7. They don't even talk about the fact that
because it's not
3 months. 3 months
about it.
Of course, 3 months before they published this document, we were in negative territory. So when you say they are not talking about it a lot, you know. Plus the Azonto around using percentages instead of absolutes. Yeah. But I just thought I should bring that into the conversation.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, but so now they'll check. Fortunately, we're sending viewers.
Given that we haven't got time, one thing I want to talk about now is to say, what is the difference? What are we going to do different? Again, remember earlier I told you we've done it before. We've achieved 14%.
And I would need some time for you to talk about a big push for us.
Yes, very quickly. I will try and add that into it. One of the things His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has said he will do is he will create a more enabling environment for the private sector. All members in the private sector, not a few. Why do I say a few? You see this debt we just talked about. When you have the president give $24 million in tax exemption to his brother-in-law, his wife's brother, through Pullman, Pullman Properties, that hotel. This guy was given $24 million in tax exemptions.
But we didn't want that tax.
That is money
we are spending in negative.
And billions of dollars are lost to tax exemption in terms of revenue losses, especially in our part of the world. And this is where, you see, JM looked at it and said, hang on, if you're a Ghanaian and you set up a business in Ghana and you are contributing to the economy significantly, your money is in Ghanaian banks, you don't take it anywhere, you don't get this tax exemption. But when other companies come, including this our brother Ghanaian who has come because it's me, if I said business, they won't give me anything. Because he is related to the president, he's getting $24 million. My brother, if you get $24 million, you know what to do with it.
Of course, yes.
So JM has said he's going to make sure that if you are a new business and you hire up to 20 people, you get a tax exemption.
Wow.
We are trying to give that exemption. You see, the incentives we give to foreigners to come and produce and take back, we give it to locals to produce and keep it.
It stays in the system.
That is one thing we are going to do.
If Sedu Agongo has an FM station, the workers pay their taxes
in Ghana. The other thing is going to be for all businesses too, not just for the president's friends and family. One thing that makes people suspect that all the debt, the monies that we can find, and the prosperity is only for some people, not all Ghanaians, is this.
I feel sorry for the ordinary
Oforiata. He's a good investment banker. He set up his investment bank, Data Bank, in 1990. From 1990 all the way to 2016. He was doing good business. Yes, government business, private business. He's an astute businessman. The total amount of assets he had that he was managing was 800 million cedis.
Between 1990
to 2016, 26 years.
26 years, yeah.
Then he became
800 million.
800 million. Then he becomes finance minister. And in 3.5 years, his assets that he's managing in that investment bank have shot up to 5 billion cedis.
Really?
From 800 million in 2016 to 5 billion. Over 625% increase. How did they get there? How come that if you were growing at that rate?
We are in power,
you have said it, my brother. If you were growing at that rate every 4 years, you shouldn't have been at 800.
No, yes.
See the other interesting thing. Do you know that Ken Oforiata? You see, there's something called a book runner. When you want to take a loan, you want to rent a house or buy a house, you get an estate agent to do you what we call in Ghana, you do the connection, and they get a fee. It could be between 3 to 5%. He is finance minister. His bank, Data Bank, became the book runner for government as soon as he took over. Is that no conflict of interest?
That's what I'm going to ask. Do we not have conflict of interest?
So he sits as finance minister and he deals with his own bank as owner, and then he double speak. He'll sit there and say, how much would you want to charge me to be book runner? Then he run here and say, I think I'll take 5%. I say, well, okay, take 5%. You are speaking from two sides of your mouth. How would you? And so take all the extra borrowing. Let's even assume that it was 1% he's made. Or let's just strike an average of 5%, true or not. Maybe he makes book runner fees of that percent. And if we have raised 140 billion in 4 years, 5% of that, how much is it? That's about 7 billion cedis. That's going to him. That must surely be corruption. You cannot deal with yourself.
No,
as a government official.
You cannot deal with yourself.
Now, bear in mind that his bank makes money based on how much more you borrow. So is it in his incentive as finance minister to minimize our borrowing?
No,
and make less money, or to work it up and get his
yes, because the more he works it out, the more his data bank works for the government, and the more data bank gets money.
So you see how some of our debt, because all of those
can it be that there's no other investment bank that has been...
When Kufuor was doing redenomination, which investment bank was the official one? SAS Securities. Togo for the SAS Securities.
But data bank was in existence.
Yes.
Because from
in fact, Togo Fede was one of the initial business partners for Oforiatta in data bank. Okay. There are investment banks, and you see, he has collapsed a lot of investment bank as part of this bank.
Of course, because they don't want them.
So all their business have gone to him. You see,
okay, I'm now getting a picture. What some of the reasons why Dr. Indun's local security also was collapsed.
Of course, if you are a competitor, that's what you do. And as you speak now, enterprise insurance is effectively government. You know the insurance that was taking COVID-19 insurance for health workers. We have got SIC, that's government's insurance company. So if government wants to take insurance, where should it go? Guess where it went? Oforiatta's enterprise.
Really?
Yeah.
But what?
So the
SIC doesn't trade again?
SIC is there. If you actually go and find out who has SIC, and you find the link back to Oforiatta. But anyway, it's all back to see all the things that have happened. If you
I remember Oforiatta runs enterprise as well. Yeah.
And this is why JM says he works for the people. So look, Oforiatta will confess that he gets business. At the time, Data Bank was almost on his knees. In the time of the NDC supported Data Bank to stay because they are Ghanaians. They operate and they employ Ghanaians.
Yeah, I know NDC supported it.
So we need to move to that model where we root for all Ghanaians and not a select few. If you are not in the club, we will close your bank. We will destroy your business. When you do that, you are destroying jobs. And back to the NDC's point. So those kind of juicy things, no. That brings in big push. I know we don't have time.
No, let's keep going. Yeah.
The fundamental way you grow an economy is through investment. So what the NDC is saying, we will avoid reckless borrowing. We will be smart in how we borrow. And I'll give you examples of how we borrow smart. You know Terminal 3. Do you know that debt did not hit our national debt? Terminal 3.
Really?
We spent. You know how the NDC did it?
No,
how? Government owns Ghana Airport Company Limited. We take profits from it when they make profit.
Yes.
JM decided that instead of taking the profits out, and when they need to make an infrastructure, you have to borrow and pay them, leave that profit for them, let them build their balance sheet.
Okay.
Then they can go to the market as a company and borrow against that balance sheet.
Okay.
That's what they did.
Like private people.
Good.
Yeah,
so
look for
government
your
did not
money.
step in.
Yeah.
But they've got the backbone. You see, the port expansion cost 1.5 billion. We didn't pay a penny. Smart borrowing. Use what you have to get, and of course we have some counterpart, if you like, support or if you like credibility support from the World Bank to say if the company will pay. But we basically told the company building it, you go and find money. We guarantee you that you can make the money. Go and find the money and come and build it. Meridian Port Holdings, they went and raised 1.5 billion, came and built it. They tripled the container processing capacity from 1 million to 3 million. More business going through.
Yes.
A trouble gas processing plant. We didn't pay a penny. We mortgage our oil proceeds to the Chinese to come and build.
Because Conrad, I don't cut you because I was struggling to accept that. Listen, how come this is how much JM left before he left, but he had all these things to show.
Good.
Because I've seen some of them. You know, I was in Ghana in March and I was in Mampong, Asante Mampong, and I saw the big water project that is done there. Because before the Asante
things
Mampong,
we took for granted.
And it's rooted and run through Kumau and all those areas and all that. Then if this is how much, and these people, the NPP had borrowed just 138 in just 4 years, even less.
Well,
you know, and
whenever they try to do any smart borrowing, you find some fishy deal in there. I don't know whether they like fish too much. Anything they do, there's fishy.
Have you tried it before?
What happened to PDS?
Okay.
Anytime you try to do something, we actually started and put everything in place for it to happen. They came and changed everything and put their own family people there and all these juicy things. Go and set up a company in Angola. I say Angola, Mua, you are the ones. Ijapa. I'm not going to talk. It is the man they appointed as what do you call him? The corruption man.
Amidu.
He himself has said it. Cronism.
Decoy. These are the words he was using.
It's like a ancient thing. They could do it. Why are they not doing it? The NDC did it before. Learn. It's for the welfare of Ghana.
But for the benefit of listeners and avoidance of doubt as well, the PDS people had put themselves together, kick ECG away, started collecting monies belonging to Ghana from individuals consuming the power. And the government says it didn't realize that it didn't have what it takes, so the government regrets that. Wow. They didn't apologize though, kicked them off. But those people who collected all these monies are still working around. The
thing is, you see, that is the reality. The plan that was there, they changed it. Set up their own companies or existing companies. Suddenly you find people, allegedly people owning barber shops that suddenly had big shares in it. Yeah. Angolan companies, and it was a Ghana company. You know, and then it's pathetic. But at the end of the day, they themselves looked at it and realized that this could not stand when Ghanaians screamed. Yeah. So even though PDS took off in March 2019, by October, 6 months down the lane, it collapsed and they shut it down. In that space, the so-called PDS consortium collected over 1.5 billion
that is my problem.
Of electricity bills. Those electricity bills should have gone to ECG, because the whole idea was, now ECG is collecting our bills. That new company, PDS, with all its people in there, should have then taken responsibility for collecting those bills, because let's assume they are better at it, and then pay ECG for it and keep their cut, their percentage. They've collected over 1.5 billion cedis between March 2019 that they took over till October 2020 they cancelled it. Where is that money? No one knows where that money is. Have they paid it back?
No.
No one knows.
No, they haven't. We see them all the time. We see Philip, we see Gabi Sarochedakwe. They're still working at the corridors of power.
It's a hopeless case, you see, and this is why we need to rescue Ghana. There are good people in the MPP. This MPP you see is not the MPP we always knew.
No, not at all.
No.
It has changed so
much.
The
MPP themselves have to look deep into their heart and say, do you want the welfare of Ghana, or do you want to destroy that good tradition that goes back all the way to Busia today?
But people trusted Nana so much. Was he always this dishonest, or he just changed? I struggle to understand.
It is a question. In fact, most people, including myself, thought, when you fight hard for a position, because Nana Ado's presidential ambition started in '96.
Long time
ago, when he lost to Kufuor and all that stuff. It's a long story. And of course, 2008 he was flawed. 2012 JM used 3 months to do him Al-Baraka, finish him off. He got it in 2016. We would have expected, and that was the message. That look, he has a legacy to protect.
Many people are disappointed.
And he said, Manasseh says it. He said, no nonsense. Then it turns out that the man is now accepting anything in the name of corruption.
And sometimes he comes back to say he's misled and all that. And I'm thinking,
but back to our point,
very big lawyer.
What is the NDC doing? I've talked about tax exemptions. We've talked. You see, the key thing we have said as the NDC is that we are going to build a knowledge economy. That is why you have these things about apprenticeship, training, skills, making TVET free so that technical people can go in, making loans available. By the way, Exim Bank we set up was to support businesses to export. Now it is being used to give 200,000 to Ejako. Anytime he criticized MPP, they call him and give him money. Shatawale also criticized. He went and they gave him his check. That is not the purpose of Exim Bank. It was meant to finance businesses to scale up. Yes, because when those businesses do well and they export, they make dollars, which gives less pressure on the city. Why are we going to give money to somebody because he has spoken against you instead of actually giving to the businessman who did it? Anyway, that's by the by.
Anyway, we run out, unfortunately, but I will push with the technical team that we revisit this show again, possibly by next week, if we can. And we're going to get it together with corruption, because it looks like when people run the economy down, it gets down into corruption as well.
Absolutely. A lot of what we've spoken today is terms of corruption.
Initially, I thought they were just incompetent at what they're doing, but you cannot accept that Furata is incompetent with what he's doing, apart from corruption and blatant stealing from the people. Nothing else can explain for this, and it's very pathetic.
But I think my last words is this: John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, has promised we will get the nation building again. We will build an Eastern Corridor road and rail line, starting from Takrady all the way to Hamele in my region. There will be an inland port at Hamele. So the people in Hamele now, rest assured, when we can, we'll build an inland port. Customs officers will be there. You will get jobs there. There's the Eastern Corridor route. We'll finish it and there will be a railway there. We will do the golden triangle.
Patronize them, pay us money.
Yes, the golden triangle between Accra, Kintampo, Kumasi, Kintampo, and Tutakradi. We will build that cater port that has high CEO without it. Why are we building? It's when you build, you create jobs. When you build, you create jobs. Those jobs will pay taxes. Each person's taxes will increase your revenue. It also allows more facilities. If a town has one hospital with 1,000 nurses, and you add another hospital, that town suddenly has 2,000 nurses alone. I'm not even looking at doctors and others. Each of them will draw salary. They will consume. That is how the economy grows. And that is why when the EU, when the UK, when the US, whenever they are in trouble, what do? They look at our infrastructure boost. We will borrow smartly. I'll give you examples of how we do it without stressing the debt levels, and invest them so that the fruits of those investments will yield income to help settle our debts, keep debts low, and make sure that Ghanaians have decent, sustainable jobs, not NAPCO type jobs. We promise to make NAPCO permanent. You don't give a person a job and say 3 years later I'll fire you. You don't do that. If they are doing the work and that role is needed, make them permanent.
Exactly.
I hear they are not going to do it. But we are going to provide skills training, entrepreneurship, and once you've got the skills and you want to spin off on your own, we will provide those grants and loans, soft facilities.
It's all within the big push.
It's all within the big push.
We will discuss
that $10 billion program.
Be my guest next week. I would talk to management, and we will be my guest next week.
Thank you very much, Sankofa.
Well. Yes.
It's been a lovely conversation.
Very much. Very much.
If time was not of the essence,
thank you very much.
Carry on.
Yes. That's my guest, the young man from Wa. And the first time I went to Bid Zidin. Yeah, Bid was in Wa at the time.
Good
I
man.
went to visit. I enjoyed it, every bit of it. So yeah. Conrad Dumbah, thank you very much for coming. My name is Sankofa Tete Danso. We would try and make this again next week. But I keep on saying, think for food and food for thought. Dissociate yourself from the narrative and compare the figures and the facts. It works. This is Omega Live. Keep watching. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Tamalenku Doriansu Adewae NDC Mahama bro, Brabedi enu, Brabeso yemu, Brabedi enu, Brabeso yemu.